Professional wrestling has always been known for its drama, jaw-dropping performances, and larger-than-life superstars shining under the bright lights. Yet, behind all the glitz and spectacle lies a darker side that has, at times, shaken the very foundation of the industry. Over the years, scandals have erupted, sending shockwaves through fans and wrestlers alike. But as time passed, many of those controversies slowly faded away, buried in the past as if they never happened. Today, we're going to dig deeper and uncover those forgotten dark secrets, reminding ourselves that the wrestling world isn't just about glory and stardom. Let's dive right in. Wrestling sphere, go! 1. The steroid scandal of the early 90s. In WWE history, few events shook the company as severely as the steroid scandal of the early 1990s, a controversy so massive it nearly brought down Vince McMahon's empire. This wasn't just another wrestling headline. It turned into a nationwide investigation that dragged WWF, the former name of WWE, into the harsh glare of public scrutiny, surrounded by doubt and criticism. At that time, professional wrestling was in its golden era, dominated by muscle-bound icons like Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, and Macho Man Randy Savage. Oversized physiques packed with bulging muscles had become the unwritten standard for anyone hoping to rise to main event status. From this expectation grew endless whispers about steroid use, whispers that quickly spread throughout the industry. By the early 90s, those rumors exploded when the US government launched a direct investigation into Vince McMahon and the WWF. The allegations claimed McMahon had distributed steroids to his wrestlers to ensure they maintained their massive appearances inside the ring. Testimonies, evidence, and relentless media coverage dragged WWF's reputation to an all-time low. What was once viewed as a family-friendly entertainment company became linked to doping scandals and the image of manufactured bodies fueled by banned substances. The investigation dragged on for years, filled with court hearings and testimonies from influential figures. The climax came in 1994, when Vince McMahon himself stood trial. The media at the time treated it as a do-or-die moment for the WWF boss. A guilty verdict could have destroyed the company completely. Yet after months of proceedings, McMahon was acquitted due to lack of direct evidence. The ruling saved WWF, but its image was permanently scarred. In the aftermath, WWE was forced to change how it operated. Over the following years, the company implemented stricter health regulations and began laying the groundwork for more rigorous drug testing policies. Still, the cost was steep. WWF's reputation was damaged, public trust was shaken, and many top stars of that era were cast under suspicion. Today, most younger fans may have never even heard of the steroid scandal. But back in the early 90s, it was a genuine nightmare that threatened the very future of professional wrestling's biggest promotion. The scandal stands as proof that WWE once teetered on the edge of collapse before eventually rebounding to become the global powerhouse it is today. 2. Jake and the tragedy of the Python Damien. Anyone who has seen the documentary Beyond the Mat can't forget the heartbreaking image of Jake the Snake Roberts in decline during the late 90s. Once a legend who electrified WWE crowds, he was now struggling with a fading career, reduced to working small shows across the UK for All-Star Wrestling in the early 2000s. Performing in front of sparse audiences, his lackluster matches disappointed fans, but the darkest part of the story happened behind the scenes. In early 2002, the British press reported that Jake was under investigation for animal cruelty. The case exploded after a spectator accused him of abusing an animal during a show. Shockingly, the very next night, authorities personally witnessed similar actions, sparking public outrage and putting Jake at the center of criticism. 2 years later, on February 23, 2004, things escalated when Jake was arrested in connection with the death of a 12-foot Burmese python named Damien. The snake had been his iconic partner in the ring, forever tied to the snake persona that made him famous. Yet, this very creature met a tragic end inside the home Jake shared with a 59-year-old woman. When police inspected the residence, they found Damien confined to a cramped cage, frail and visibly suffering. The python was battling a severe mouth infection, covered in ticks, and nearly drained of strength. Although discovered alive, Damien passed away just 3 weeks later from pneumonia, a heartbreaking fate for the animal that once symbolized Jake's greatest triumphs. Roberts was then charged with animal cruelty. By law, he faced up to 6 months in prison. However, fortune, or perhaps the failure of justice, intervened. Jake managed to leave the United Kingdom and return to the United States before the legal process could be finalized. The story of Jake and Damien is more than a forgotten scandal. It stands as a bitter reminder of how far a legend can fall, and of the devastating consequences when the line between glory and darkness is erased. 3. The Ring Boy Scandal, 1992. When people talk about the biggest controversies in WWE's backstage history, the steroid scandal or the infamous plane ride from hell usually come to mind. Yet there was another incident that nearly shattered the company's credibility. The Ring Boy Scandal of 1992, a case so sensitive that WWE has all but erased it from its past. The term Ring Boy referred to young workers, mostly teenagers or young men, hired to help set up the ring, prepare equipment, or perform small tasks during live events. In the early 90s, some of these ring boys came forward with disturbing claims, accusing powerful backstage figures of sexual misconduct. When these allegations reached the press, fans were stunned. This wasn't just about inappropriate behavior, it touched on one of the most sensitive issues imaginable, sexual abuse involving minors. Among those named in the scandal, the most prominent was Pat Patterson, then Vince McMahon's right-hand man and a key figure credited with creating the Royal Rumble match. Another was Mel Phillips, who oversaw the ring crew and faced accusations of improper conduct with the boys. Although no criminal convictions came out of the case, WWE was forced to quietly dismiss or remove certain individuals in an attempt to calm public outrage. What made the Ring Boy scandal such a dark stain, however, was the way the company handled it. WWE maintained near total silence, issued minimal public statements, and relied on time and media fatigue to bury the story. With the internet not yet widespread, coverage didn't circulate as far as it would today. At the same time, WWE was already entangled in the steroid scandal, which diverted much of the public's attention. As a result, the Ring Boy controversy faded into obscurity, becoming a subject the company and many fans avoided altogether. Today, many younger viewers may have no idea this scandal ever happened. But for those who followed wrestling in the early 90s, it remains one of the most damaging controversies WWE ever faced. It revealed a disturbing side of the wrestling world rarely seen and served as a reminder of the serious crises WWE had to survive before becoming the global brand it is now. 4. Io Sky framed. In the world of Japanese wrestling, any scandal involving drugs is essentially a death sentence for one's career. For Io Shirai, who would later capture global attention under the name Io Sky, the incident at Narita Airport in May 2012 nearly cost her everything. That day, Shirai and her then-boyfriend, Nozawa Rongai, were returning from the Lucha Expo event in Mexico. While passing through customs, officials discovered marijuana hidden inside a double picture frame the couple had received from a fan. In an instant, the joy of completing an international tour turned into a nightmare. Both were arrested on charges of attempting to smuggle drugs into Japan, a crime severe enough to end any wrestler's career, especially in a society as unforgiving toward narcotics as Japan. The news spread rapidly across the media, sparking heated public debate. Many believed Shirai's promising career was finished, her future wiped out in disgrace. Yet after weeks in detention, she was released. Shirai firmly maintained her innocence, though she admitted she feared the ordeal might permanently erase the dream she had chased since childhood. Fortunately, the truth was not on her shoulders. Soon after, Takuya Sugi, a well-known figure in Japanese wrestling, unexpectedly confessed that he had planted the drugs. He claimed he did so at the request of Hayashi, who had personal issues with Nozawa. Hayashi was far from a nobody. He was a respected designer of wrestling gear and masks, with a resume that included working with major stars like Rey Mysterio since the mid-1990s. Sugi's confession completely changed the narrative. Shirai was cleared of suspicion, while Sugi's own career collapsed. Instead of being destroyed, Shirai's path only widened. She returned to the ring, climbed the ranks, and ultimately entered WWE as Io Sky, becoming one of the most talented and resilient women's wrestlers of her generation. What happened at Narita seemed destined to end her career, but it instead became a harsh trial that proved even in the face of betrayal, truth could pull Io Sky out of the shadows and allow her to shine brightly on the world stage. 5. The bitter truth of the rock bottom line. Throughout his legendary career, Stone Cold Steve Austin faced more than a few controversies outside the ring, and one of them became the darkest shadow of his life. On June 12, 2002, Austin was arrested and charged with assault after a domestic violence incident involving his then-wife, Deborah Marshall. The scandal severely damaged the reputation of the Texas Rattlesnake, and pushed their marriage to the brink of collapse. After the divorce was finalized, Austin quickly entered a tumultuous relationship with actress Tess Broussard. Their time together was far from peaceful, surrounded by rumors of constant arguments and accusations of abuse from both sides. At one point, Austin even had to leave his home in San Antonio and move in with his close friend Diamond Dallas Page in Los Angeles because Broussard refused to vacate their shared residence for an astonishing 7 months. The tension eventually exploded on August 6, 2004. That day, Austin arranged to meet Broussard at a restaurant in Los Angeles to end things once and for all. He presented her with a $1.5 million check, hoping she would accept it in exchange for cutting ties and withdrawing all legal actions against him. Instead of agreeing, Broussard allegedly erupted in rage. According to Austin, she grabbed a steak knife at the table and lunged at him. Austin narrowly avoided the attack, but the blade struck his manager, George Rabeck, leaving him with a serious arm injury. Broussard was immediately charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Yet she retaliated by filing a $10 million lawsuit against Austin, filled with damaging accusations aimed at the former WWE champion. Unwilling to back down, Austin countersued, seeking an astronomical $185 million in damages. The legal battle dragged on, becoming a major headline in the media at the time. Finally, in 2006, both sides reached an out-of-court settlement, bringing an end to one of the most chaotic and controversial scandals ever linked to the name Stone Cold. 6. Billy Gunn's affair scandal. In the world of professional wrestling, where stars are constantly on the road living a lifestyle not unlike rock bands on endless tours, extramarital affairs are hardly unusual. Some remain hidden in silence, while others explode into public view and make tabloid headlines. One of the most notorious stories involved WWE veteran Billy Gunn. In 2009, after his WWE career had ended and he was competing on the independent circuit, Gunn's private life unexpectedly became the focus of attention. His affair with a woman named Deborah "Pinky" Simovich was discovered by his wife. Faced with the truth, Gunn chose to end the relationship in an attempt to preserve his marriage. What seemed like the end of the matter, however, quickly spiraled into something far more complicated. According to Gunn, Simovich refused to accept the breakup. Instead of letting go, she allegedly began bombarding him and his wife with phone calls, leaving them in constant distress. Every day, Gunn found himself under pressure not only from his career but also from an unrelenting stream of calls and threatening messages. Simovich, on the other hand, told a completely different story. She accused Gunn and his wife of being the ones who harassed and intimidated her. To support her claims, she released shocking material, recorded conversations with Gunn, text messages, and even photos she claimed showed the wrestler under the influence of drugs. These revelations quickly caught the attention of tabloid outlets, turning the affair into a hot topic that lingered in the public eye for quite some time. Despite the chaos, the scandal eventually faded. Gunn and his wife managed to stay together, overcoming what could have been a devastating blow to their marriage. Later, Gunn admitted that during that period he struggled with substance abuse, an issue that had derailed both his personal life and career more than once. Yet through determination and persistence, he was able to get clean, regain control, and rebuild his stability. Today, as a WWE Hall of Famer, Billy Gunn is remembered not only as a celebrated performer but also as an example of resilience, a man who managed to rise above mistakes and personal turmoil that once threatened to overshadow his legacy. 7. Antonio Inoki's embezzlement scandal. Antonio Inoki is a name inseparable from the rise of professional wrestling in Japan. Yet beyond his legendary status in the ring, he carried ambitions that stretched far beyond combat sports, chasing success in completely different arenas. In the early 1980s, Inoki placed a massive bet on a bold biotechnology project, an idea that sounded revolutionary at first but quickly unraveled into a financial disaster. The concept centered on repurposing waste from sugarcane liquor production, combining it with special enzymes to convert it into livestock feed. According to Inoki's vision, the cycle would continue when cow manure was treated and recycled into a new food source, potentially contributing to the fight against global hunger. On paper, the project resembled a sustainable solution, but in practice, it was riddled with risks. The fermentation process, the critical step for success, faced persistent, unsolvable problems. At the same time, soaring inflation in both Brazil and Japan pushed operating costs far beyond projections. Despite the high hopes attached to it, the plan soon collapsed, leaving Inoki burdened with enormous debt after only a short time in operation. Desperate to keep his unfulfilled dream alive, Inoki made a shocking choice. He secretly diverted profits from New Japan Pro Wrestling, the very promotion that had made him a national icon, into the failing venture. This move extended the project's survival by a few years but also amounted to serious embezzlement. When the truth came to light, someone had to take the fall. That figure was Hisashi Shinma, the booker of New Japan at the time. The scandal prompted Shinma to leave the company, taking with him several top talents, including the original Tiger Mask. Together, they founded the Universal Wrestling Federation, a direct rival, creating a deep fracture within the promotion and tarnishing Inoki's public image. Inoki's ambitions outside the ring came with a heavy price. Instead of being remembered as a pioneer in biotechnology, he became tied to one of the most damaging financial scandals of his career, a permanent stain on the legacy of a man once regarded as an indomitable icon. 8. Gaza wastes a golden opportunity with a needle. In late 2004, TNA Wrestling began building up a new cruiserweight star to give the show fresh excitement. The man chosen was Hector Gaza, a former WCW wrestler from Mexico known for his spectacular high-flying style. To fans, Gaza was viewed as a sensation of aerial wrestling. He quickly made an impact with key victories, even defeating AJ Styles, one of TNA's cornerstones at the time. His momentum grew further when he was placed in major storylines, outshining both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, which led to a planned singles match against Hall at the Final Resolution 2005 pay-per-view. The storyline was clear. Gaza was expected to win decisively and cement himself as TNA's breakout star. But everything collapsed in an instant. That dream match never happened because Gaza threw it all away. On January 3, 2005, while traveling to Orlando for TNA's TV tapings, he was stopped at Houston Airport in Texas. Security discovered he was carrying a small amount of anabolic steroids, a banned substance in the United States. The incident left TNA with no choice but to abandon their plans for him. On January 12, Gaza appeared in court and admitted to the violation. He was sentenced to 15 days in jail. However, since he had already served 9 days before sentencing, only a few days remained on his term. By January 21, he was officially deported back to Monterrey, Mexico. In later interviews, Gaza insisted he hadn't realized the muscle-enhancing drug he was using was illegal in the U.S. He also complained about what he described as harsh and humiliating treatment from police during his detention. Still, his explanations couldn't salvage his TNA career, one that had been poised to open a bright new chapter. Once the door to America closed, Gaza continued wrestling in Mexico, maintaining popularity in his homeland until the final years of his life. Sadly, in 2013, he passed away from lung cancer, closing the book on a career filled with highs and lows, and forever marked by the heartbreaking reality that his biggest opportunity slipped away because of one costly mistake. 9. Harsh justice. In the world of wrestling, few are unaware of the reality that ECW in the 90s was steeped in drug use. While most wrestlers in the locker room only dabbled to a limited degree, the Pitbulls took things too far, plunging deep into the dangerous cycle of narcotics and the underground market. On July 2, 1997, Anthony Durant and Gary Wolfe, the two halves of the Pitbulls, were arrested at their South Philadelphia home. They faced 3 charges connected to distributing marijuana and steroids dating back to 1995, after being formally indicted by a grand jury. For them, this was essentially the end of their ECW careers and the destruction of a potential move to WCW, which had planned to feature them in a feud with the Steiners. By March 1998, both men were forced to plead guilty. The punishment didn't involve prison time, but it was still enough to ruin their future. Durant and Wolfe were sentenced to 3 years probation, fined $2,000 each, and ordered to repay $7,600 in profits made from their dealings. While those numbers may not seem enormous, the consequences were devastating. Reputations shattered, careers derailed, and their image permanently tarnished. Yet the story didn't end there. Rumors spread that Durant had cooperated with authorities, providing information about bigger suppliers in exchange for a lighter sentence. If true, it was effectively a death warrant, since the criminal underworld never forgives betrayal. From that point on, Durant lived under suspicion and fear, regarded by many as a target for revenge. The true tragedy struck in September 2003, when Durant and his girlfriend suddenly died from a fentanyl overdose. Many speculated it was not a simple accident, but rather a setup, tainted drugs deliberately laced as payback. While the truth remains clouded in mystery, Durant's death closed the book on a turbulent life and left an indelible stain on the Pitbull's legacy in ECW history. 10. Taz's infamous ordeal. In the fall of 1998, Taz was at the peak of his career in ECW. With his hard-hitting style, compact physique, and trademark black and orange gear, he had become the promotion's top star, the man Paul Heyman trusted to eventually dethrone Shane Douglas after his lengthy championship reign. Yet just when everything seemed to be aligning, an unexpected scandal erupted, one that nearly destroyed his image and derailed the career he had worked so hard to build. That September, local news outlets reported that Taz was facing serious allegations. According to the claims, he had asked a 15-year-old receptionist at the Moon Beach tanning salon in Pittsburgh to rub oil on him, then removed his shirt and allegedly exposed himself in front of her. Shocked and frightened, the girl immediately called the police, turning the incident into a public controversy that rattled the community. Taz, real name Peter Cernancia, was quickly tracked down and taken into custody. When arrested, he gave officers a false name, Taz Stone, in an attempt to conceal his identity, which only fueled the media frenzy. The charges against him were far from minor: indecent exposure in a public setting and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. For anyone, such accusations could leave a permanent stain. For a wrestler at the height of his fame, they were potentially career-ending. With bail set at $10,000, Taz was unable to pay immediately and ended up spending 48 hours behind bars before being released. The man once celebrated as the human suplex machine suddenly found his reputation in tatters. Fans who once admired him began questioning not only his character but also the integrity of the persona they had supported. Fortunately for Taz, the case eventually collapsed. After more than a year of investigations, all charges were dropped. He avoided what could have been a devastating end to his career before it truly reached its prime. Still, even with the legal storm behind him, the incident left a lasting shadow. It became one of the most notorious scandals to hit ECW in the late 1990s and a blemish forever attached to Taz's journey through professional wrestling. 11. Punished for running his mouth. Juventud Guerrera was a gifted wrestler whose speed and explosive style always drew cheers whenever he entered the ring. But outside of competition, he carried a trait that rubbed many the wrong way: an uncontrollable mouth. His habit of speaking without restraint often irritated his peers and even earned him enemies. In March 2009, that very flaw came back to haunt him in a brutal way. Within AAA, Guerrera had already gained a reputation for being difficult, but his relationship with Sean X-Pac Waltman was the real powder keg. Tension stemmed from Guerrera publicly exposing Waltman's suicide attempt. That revelation not only damaged Waltman's reputation but had devastating consequences. His then-girlfriend, Alicia Webb, better known to fans as Ryan Shamrock, lost custody of her child. From that point on, the animosity between the two men grew more personal and hostile. When Guerrera eventually returned to AAA, the backstage atmosphere was thick with tension. During a multi-man steel cage match, several wrestlers who already disliked him decided it was time to send a message. They targeted Guerrera with stiff, punishing shots that went far beyond standard performance, turning the bout into a merciless beating. Things escalated after the match. Guerrera discovered a disgusting gift in his bag: a pile of feces left by Waltman as an insult and challenge. Outraged, Guerrera confronted Booker Conan, blaming him for the humiliation. The argument spiraled into chaos when Jack Evans suddenly attacked, leaving Guerrera bloodied. Conan joined in as well, throwing a few punches of his own to vent his frustration. After the dust settled, Evans and Conan received little more than a slap on the wrist from the local commission. Meanwhile, Lizzie Valentine, Guerrera's valet, quit the promotion immediately in protest. Guerrera himself threatened legal action but eventually returned to AAA years later. Even so, the incident remained a permanent stain on his career, a painful reminder that sometimes, loose words can be more dangerous than any strike delivered inside the ring. Those were some shocking scandals that few still remember in the world of wrestling. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the other exciting stories we share here on Wrestling Sphere.